consistently every day for 5 minutes compared to the students who practice 1 hour every week don't make the leaps and bounds that the other students do. And so that's really, I mean, that's what I'd say. Just to be consistent more than anything.
And then with the two types of, doing number exercises versus reading, do you feel like they have the same value? Or do you think you should spend more of that, whatever time chunk you have, should you spend more doing one versus the other?
Well, the two exercises deal with different aspects of accelerated reading. So when you're speed reading and you're going through text, you're getting your eyes used to reading at accelerated rates and building up the connections from your eyes to your brain and taking in information that way. So that's what that builds on, is the process of taking in information. Okay, the number find game, I know it sounds silly, but that actually helps you scan. It helps your eyes look at an entire page and try and take in all the information at once. And so that's how that exercise works. And so that helps you scan better, but not necessarily take in information more, just it allows you to see more information. And the other, so the number exercise helps you see more information, and the reading exercises help you take in more information.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the difference between the two. So, you can at least practice on one or the other, but you're always going to be building up one.
Yeah.
And if you have the ability to scan, but you don't have the ability to take in information, it's useless. And if you have the ability to take in information, you're going to get up to a point, probably around 400 or 500 words, and you're going to get stuck. You're not going to go past it. And that's where the numbers come in. They help you scan, so that way you can look at an entire page of text and read it.
Okay.
So that's that, I guess.
Well, probably final question here. I know that from listening to you talk and talk a lot, I'm very excited about it. I'm sure a lot of our users are too. And maybe they've seen the basic videos and they want to go to that next step. If you were to recommend a practice routine for someone, do you feel like there's a critical mass, like you mentioned they can do 5 minutes, they can do an hour? Do you feel like there's a certain chunk of time that's good to do every day? And what would you recommend they do every day?
Well, if you're going to do an extended amount of time, longer than a half hour to an hour, you definitely want to warm up your eyes. Because your eyes, behind your eyes, you have muscles. And the muscles are just like any other. And if you're moving them up and down like this, or side to side, or diagonally at an accelerated rate where you're constantly doing this, eventually you're going to start to notice strain behind your eyes, and you're going to have a nice headache to go with it. So one thing you can do is you can warm up your eyes with the exercise, and that deals with the numbers in the corners, and the 1, 2, 3, 4, and zigzagging your eyes slowly and working with that. And what that'll do is that'll allow you to read for a prolonged period of time at an accelerated rate and not get a headache or any kind of strain. So that's what I would say. As far as practicing goes, you'll notice that you're hitting a wall once you build up to a certain point in the day. You'll notice that you're reading faster, and then suddenly there's a ceiling, and you just can't get past it. And that's where you should probably call it a day.
Yeah.
And you'll notice the next day, you'll go past that with relative ease, but then you'll hit a ceiling again. And it's kind of like that. It's steps like this, rather than, it's not just a gradual, if you practice, 24 hours a day, by the end of the day you're a speed reader. It's more of chunking it out, and that's where the consistency thing comes in, because you're building on what you did the last day. But the thing is that if you spend an hour on it and then wait a week, in that time you're going to come back down and then have to go back up. So it's the more consistent you are with your practice, you'll notice a more steady climb, and the less consistent you are, you'll notice a more wave pattern, which is what I've noticed in my students too. The students that I met with like once a week and we'd work on it together, you'd notice a big kind of roller coaster. But the students who I kept track of and were consistently doing it, you'd notice like little changes, but pretty much always accelerating.
Okay. Yeah. To close it out here, I want to say that after talking to you, like I said, I practice a little bit myself. But I've noticed that when we'll go through sometimes, I'm sure a lot of our users are the same way, the information will go through like that, you follow through and read it quickly, but I'm not sure how much of it I'm actually taking in and how much of it I'm just looking at. Is that something that comes more with time, or should someone slow down at that point? What do you think?
That's a good question. When you practice speed reading at first, you'll have pretty much 0% comprehension. And you're absolutely right. You're not going to understand the thing. Because what your eyes are taking in is 1 or 2 words, and then 3 or 4 words, and then 5 or 6 words. And that's with practicing, But that's the thing, is your eyes are taking those words in, not your mouth.
Okay.
And that's the thing, is that a lot of people, they start speed reading, and they're like, okay, what's the point of looking through all these pages and everything? I'm only getting a word or 2 per page. but that's a word or two with your eyes, not with your larynx. And so now if you read, you're reading actually one word faster when you read that text, because you're picking up one word every time you use your larynx in between there or whatever. And if you keep practicing that, you notice more and more you're getting 2 words, 3 words, 4 words per page. And that's what I try to tell my students when I'm working with them personally, is when I'm flipping through pages with them, I'm like, try and get 4 words per page. And I'm flipping and I'm flipping and I'm flipping, and they're like, okay, okay, okay. And then they're consistently getting in 3 or 4 words, and then it's 5 or 6, and then it's 10 or 12, and so on and so forth, until eventually you're starting to take in a considerable amount of words and seeing them all at once and picking them out and picking them out. And then eventually you go to read, and you'll notice you're reading significantly faster. And it's not because your larynx is able to read faster, it's because your eyes are filling in the blanks where your larynx is leaving off. And that's where the accelerated part comes in. So I mean, essentially, you know, when you're working it up, you kind of have, when you start, you have all larynx, no eyes, okay? And then as you work, the 100% starts to shift. So you have like 90% larynx, 10% eyes, 80% larynx, 20% eyes. And it keeps shifting back and forth until eventually, you know, your eyes are taking in more, or you balance them and you decide. And that's the thing you want to have, is you want to be able to read 100% with your eyes and 100% with your larynx, and be able to switch between the two. And there's no fluctuation of comprehension.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, Kris, are there any last words you'd like to close out with here for anyone watching?
If you have any questions or don't understand anything that Paul or I have been talking about, feel free to email us at YouTube or make a comment citing your question, and we'll be sure to answer it in a following video. Because the purpose of these videos is to help you read faster. So if these videos are helping you, let us know, and if they're not, and you're like, this isn't working for me, or I'm having trouble with this, let us know so we can figure out a way to better help you guys at home read faster.
Sounds good.
I'd like to say.
Okay, well thanks very much, Kris, for joining us, and
No problem.
see you guys again soon.
All right.